I'm having to tear myself away from Mount&Blade to Bannerlord. It's Moorish. I'd just finished up Doom Eternal before starting this, and hot take, there isn't a moment in Doom Eternal that, for me, could match the visceral satisfaction gained from a key battle in Bannerlord. In terms of setting up contextual wrapping for action, to heighten the reward, Bannerlord manages to win out. I mean, obviously, Doom Eternal is pretty great, and they are completely different games. But it's something I've just played, so it's in my mind. Also, Bannerlord is by no means perfect. Obviously, it's in early access. But I'm just saying, composing the peaks and troughs of action in your game design really pays off. 2008's Mount&Blade was a very intriguing counterpoint, for me, to what the Elder Scrolls and Gothic series were doing in their open-world spaces. It was an admirable attempt by Taleworlds to bridge the many gaps between 4X games and battle simulators and open-world fantasy games. It's a huge undertaking. Making a first-person role-playing game and a large-scale battle simulator and an empire management game in the same game, and have it work, that's an achievement. If it works. If the various components of the game hang well together. Seamlessly if possible. The only game that I can recall that was this diverse, having top-down empire management and first-person gameplay and tactical army combat, was Birthright: The Gorgon's Alliance. I felt like that didn't work, but my brother also played it for what feels like eternity, so I also remember just resenting the hell out of it. Mount&Blade did hang together, albeit a little roughly around the edges. Now Bannerlords has polished these edges, making it more approachable for new players. I fired up Warband to remind myself how it looked, and while, as with Daggerfall, I loved it for its unique design philosophy, it's kind of ugly. Bannerlord represents a promising, palatable foundation for a lot of content to come, from its full release to mods to presumed expansions. Obviously it's a shame to lose the modding history of Warband, but I trust in time that'll be recreated for Bannerlord. The currently operational core of Bannerlord feels fairly identical to that of Warband, harassing bands of looters, growing and training yourself, your army, and taking over the world. And I'd far rather have this similarity than a dilution or compromise in Taleworld's vision, even if some may feel like this is just a remaster of Warband. For sure, this is early access, there are teething pains, balancing issues, visual bugs, AI glitches, there are issues with stats for some of the units, the dialogue and story is bare bones, the barest of bones. But it is a complete skeleton in that there's enough to dig into the marrow of the game, conquering the world either with your own faction or as a member of another. Although I've seen bugs, they seem rare and I've had no crashing or game-breaking issues after some 70 or so hours. The battles will repeat a lot, but they are pretty enjoyable in themselves, beautiful looking, and the apparent historical accuracy and realism employed in the design of the nearly 300 varieties of troops is evident. But the battles are hugely augmented by the gameplay context surrounding them, which you build through your campaign. There's no fast travel. This raises the stakes, making movement more perilous. You can't incarnate as a top-down, omnipresent being to manage your settlements, garrisons, and constructions. You have to slowly travel to locations to manage them, perhaps abandoning others to dire fates as you do so, you don't know. Again, raising the stakes. You can't pause combat and float into the heavens to micromanage orders. This makes your real-time decision-making ambiguous in outcome, and tense, given that the lives of your soldiers depend on your performance. Stakes flying high. Knowing that you've got allied lords and an empire depending on your decision can sometimes send the stakes into frickin' orbit. And these key battles are where the game really peaks. Bannerlord completely centers the action around your player character, even when elements of the game, empire management or tactical commanding, might usually necessarily tempt the developers away from that center. And this feels like the reason why Bannerlord, and indeed Warband, hang together so well and are usually so immersive. Everything is anchored to the player character, despite the far-reaching impact of your decisions. This is the game design equivalent of an artist limiting their palette or an architect limiting their materials to augment creative output. And it works here. For all Bannerlord's faults, it feels tight. I trust that the current crop of bugs and the flimsy dialogue and unappealing questing will be reworked by the time of full release. And I'll revisit this game then, as well as go over whatever the best mods happen to be at that time. Please do subscribe for that. I adore this game, but to be clear, there isn't remotely enough to satisfy a Skyrim-type adventure at present, if solo questing is your preference. But charging on horseback towards hundreds of enemies, landing killing blows on the way, leading a small force to a tight victory against overwhelming odds, in the knowledge that you're saving your empire, turning the tide. I haven't had many better experiences in gaming, if any. The original Mount&Blade was a window into my initial wildest dreams for what Daggerfall might have been back in 1996, and could still be given the ongoing progress of Daggerfall Unity. Download it, download it. How I'd have loved it if Morrowind hadn't compromised on Daggerfall's vision. Bannerlord might feel very similar to Warband, kind of samey perhaps, in essentials, But this is a good thing. It is no compromise, and there will be more to come. There's a lot I could get into. Subtleties of combat variation between Warband and Bannerlord, what the game says about individualism and war, and the plight of peasants who just have to endure the egomaniacal war games of nobles, details of inventory, army and prisoner management, settlement upgrades, and so on. But it's likely that a lot of these things will be tweaked over time, so we'll delve more deeply into these details on full release. In the meantime, it's currently 20% off on Steam if you've got Warband. I recommend it. I award this game multi-shot bows, war llamas, and orbital stakes.